All right, so let's get going on today's class. So before we start up on the presentation guidelines for the poster, just want to make sure everybody knows about the next social media professional development. So we haven't done one of these in a while, but this is, again, the optional way to earn bonus points towards your final grade by basically building your professional presence on social media, something that's becoming more and more important for academics and for researchers. So we're going to continue on with that idea of giving before you take. And we are actually going to give a little bit and benefit from this a bit, because this is going to be the step where we help to promote the Undergraduate Research Conference here at IUSB. So I know you're very well aware it's coming up Friday, April 12th. And what we want to do is we want to help both our community become aware that there is this wonderful conference that will, break ground on some new research, but also give all of you the ability to reach a larger audience, hopefully to bring in some more viewership to your presentations. So what I'm going to be asking for this particular step is to promote 5 presentations, and I will be uploading the full URC program that you can kind of take a look through. But I just kind of highlighted the ones that we are doing from our class in this slide here. So what we're going to do is, this is the required information. You want the author of the presentation, title of the presentation, use the IUSB URC 2019 hashtag. That's for the conference, Friday, April 12th, time and location of the presentation. Indicate that it's open to the public. A lot of the public doesn't know that they can come. High school students can come to this if they if they can make it out. Hashtag support undergrad research, and then hashtag IUSB 2019, and let's see if we can get some of these picked up by the official IUSB Twitter account. So an example of this, Landry Jones will be presenting popularity and abuse of female comic book characters at hashtag IUSB URC 2019 conference, Friday, April 12th at 9 a.m. in EA 1021. Presentation is open to the public, support undergraduate research, hashtag IUSB 2019. So something like this, you can download the text, kind of modify it a little bit so that you make it your own. But you can shorten some of the titles. So Cassie's title was massively long. You can shorten it, but again, give them the time. Use the hashtag so we can track you, and let's try to get some more eyes, some more seats filled in these presentations. So we got a lot of excellent work that's being done this time around. So pay attention to the time and the room that it's in. We want to send people to the right presentations. And let's spread the word on these presentations that'll be coming up so that we can get people in the community to come to IUSB. We can get other students in IUSB to come check these out. And hopefully, just promote undergraduate research in general and promote a lot of your projects in particular. All right, so as you can see, we put up, I think, either all of them or most of them, so that you'll have the information there. So I will upload the entire program once that's completely finalized. But again, time, place, what it's about. Let's get some more people in here. So I'm asking you for this one to promote 5 presentations. That'll be 5 tweets in total. And the due date for that is going to be midnight, right before the URC. So let's see if we can get those out during this week and help spread the word on a lot of these awesome projects. Any questions on this step 7, social media development? We're all good? All right. So what I want to do now is we are going to go over one last thing for the undergraduate presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, and then we're going to switch our focus to the poster presentation. So next week is going to be dedicated to anybody that needs to do the oral presentation in class or would like to do a practice presentation. So I'll be sending out the schedules for those in an announcement. I am going to not make attendance mandatory for those. If you would rather spend some time working on your poster presentation on either of those days, feel free to do that. However, I would recommend just coming by because some of the things that you'll see will help you improve your own presentation. And if you're presenting, you know, you have to be there. So anyways, I'll send out those finalized schedules either tomorrow or sometime soon. So keep an eye out for that. And then after that, we have a meet with instructor as needed week. And then we have our poster presentation. So we're going to get you ready for that. Today we're going to take a look at how to make a poster. I'm going to give you one last presentation strategy that is very effective, and that has to do with graphs. And then we're going to talk about your poster. So how do you actually print your poster, poster presentation guidelines, how do you navigate a poster presentation? So what can you expect day of when you're in the hallway telling people about your poster, and then answering questions. We've touched on that already. And due date extensions. That is an old outline. Sorry to get your hopes up. All right, so we can't extend the poster session. It's on the last day of classes. Okay, so first off, presentation guidelines, the graphs. So I was very pleased to see in some of the presentations that I've seen so far, the works in progress, people are using graphs. And graphs are a great way to display your information visually. I prefer them much better than tables because you can actually see the differences when you do a graph. But one thing that I would highly recommend, and this is very audience friendly, is you want to introduce your graphs piece by piece. You want to give them, again, just piece by piece. So when you throw up a graph, a lot of times there's a ton of stuff on that graph and it's rather overwhelming. A much friendlier way is to bring it up section by section. So what I do is I do this in Excel first by just copying the graph and then deleting portions that I don't want. You can also do it, if you do it directly in PowerPoint, I think you can animate different sections of the graph. Either way that you can do it, what I recommend is introduce it piece by piece. So if you start with a blank graph, your audience has nothing to look at except the two axes. So this is your chance to explain the two axes. So this is your chance to say, well, here on the x-axis, and you always want to do that, you want to explain the two axes of your graphs. You can say here on the x-axis, we have the different categories of starting devices, literal or metaphorical or mixed, and then we have the added device. What device was added to that? Was it literal or was it metaphorical? And then here on the y-axis, we have the increase in depiction score. How much better did the addition of that particular device make the picture? And as you can see, and this is where the piece by piece comes in. So right now, they've paid attention to you. They know what the x-axis is. They know what the y-axis is. And then you can say, as you can see, for the literal devices that got a literal device added to it, there was an increase in depiction scores. Again, they're with you because this is the only thing they can look at. And then for adding a metaphorical device, there was an increase in depiction scores. When you added literal to metaphorical, there was an increase in depiction scores. However, when you added metaphorical to metaphorical, no increase, not significantly different. But when you added literal to mixed, positive increase again. However, when you added a metaphorical to mixed, once again, no increase in metaphorical, increase in depiction scores. So if you put it in piece by piece by piece, they can't help but follow you along, and they're not overwhelmed by you throwing 8 things at them, and they're trying to scramble to understand what it is. So consider doing that, introduce it piece by piece. And then if you have multiple graphs that are all on the same sort of theme or all use the same axes, you don't have to do this for every single graph. So what I would do in a presentation like this, I would say, well, this was the pattern of data for running. And as you can see, same pattern for the motion of falling. And as you can see, same pattern for the motion of swinging. And we also found the same pattern for the motion of flying. So it's not like it's going to take you 8 hours to present this because you're building up, 100 pieces one at a time. But it's very friendly because if you just throw this up right away, it's overwhelming. And then when you're explaining your x-axis, explaining your y-axis, which please do, don't assume that they're just going to understand what those numbers mean. While you're explaining that, their minds are off trying to figure out what the height of these bars are. But if you introduce it piece by piece, you force your audience to kind of stay with you and stay on that point that you're trying to make. All right, so I highly recommend do that in your presentation as much as you can. Introduce those graphs piece by piece. Any questions about the graphs? All righty. Okay, so now we're going to turn over to poster sessions. So on the last day of classes, we are going to have our posters. We're going to be outside presenting them in the psych department wing. And basically what you want to do in these poster sessions is this is your chance to kind of engage with the audience. So when you are doing a presentation at the URC, like a presentation where you're up here talking about your research, there's a little bit of distance, right? You're like over here, everybody's over there. You're facing that way, everybody else is facing this way. But in a poster presentation, it's more like almost like a conversation. You know, you're talking to one or two people, and it's a very kind of fun, open, exciting time, actually. So these were two posters that my lab presented at APS. And, you know, it is a fun experience. It's a time for you to kind of engage one-on-one with your particular audience. So let's make sure that we're ready, again, prepared, good to go, so that when the poster session comes, we can engage with our audience and get our points across. All right, so we'll go through some technical details first. So I've uploaded some templates. A template to Canvas. It's in your poster presentation resources. It should be a poster resources folder there. And in the PowerPoint file, you'll find 6 different templates that you can choose from. All right, so there's 6 basic templates. You can use any of those slides. And the individual slide is designed to be printed 48 inches by 36 inches. So it's a landscape orientation, 48 inches wide, 36 inches tall. So that's the design. That's what it's made to be printed. Where you can print this, we have resources here at IUSB for printing. So if you go to, this is in the Educational Arts Building, the wide format color printing, this is the resource that you have to print wide format here as a student. So it tells you the details. Submit your poster design as a PDF attachment. So you're going to want to design it in PowerPoint, save as a PDF. Save it as the same size. Do not convert it into an 8.5 by 11. Because the last thing you want to do is lose that resolution, have it blown up large, and it's massively pixelated. So double check when you're saving it as a PDF that you save it as a 48-inch by 36-inch PDF slide, and you email it to posters@iusb.edu, and you can pick it up in the Education Arts Building, room 2010. Pay attention to this one. They request a minimum of 3 business days. They will probably do it sooner than 3 business days, but you take your chances if you don't give them at least 3 business days. So give them 3 business days. There is a cost to that. We'll get into that in just a moment. And blah, 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 pick up your items there as well. And if you need more information, you can contact them. There's a contact details, Ryan Weber, or any of the staff there. If you have questions about, you know, what can you do? Can this be printed? Are there issues with this? So make sure that you have that on your radar. We got plenty of time. Poster session is on the 24th. So we still got like 3 weeks out. But do, you know, keep that on your radar. You are going to want to have that ready to go. The cost is down here. So the basic printing costs here, color poster on double matte paper, 44 inches wide. So you'll notice this is 44 inches wide. The poster design is 48 by 36. What they'll do is they will print it sideways so that the 36-inch is your 44 inches wide, and then it can scroll as long as you want. So those APS posters that I showed you, those were 44 inches wide, 8 feet long, right? So they were 44 by this, they were 8 feet this way. You can see them up in my office, they're huge. They can print it. So don't worry about, oh, it's 48 inches. It'll be 48 inches long, 36 inches wide. Color poster is $12 per running foot. So you're looking at about $48 for the color poster. Black and white poster, $6 per running foot. So that's $24. Color or black and white, either one is fine. If you're doing black and white, design your graphs to be grayscale. So make them dark gray versus light gray. Don't make them blue versus red, so that when they print up, it's gray versus gray. These other ones here, you don't need it laminated. You don't need it put onto a foam board. I don't even know what dry mount tissue is. So these are your two options right there. Your other options are to go to any commercial printing institution like Kinko's or FedEx, I think, has printing capabilities these days. You can go there as well, but this is one resource that you have access to. We got it here at IUSB. It's on campus. So that is one source that you can use. Question? Mm-hmm.
So if you have like that much money left in your print dollars, can that be applied at all to it? Like in the printing of IUSB, or is that separate?
I would imagine so. That would be a good thing to ask Ryan Weber, contact them and say, I still got money in my printing account. Can I apply it to the printing of this, wide format one?
I think because it says cash and check, I don't think they.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they got IUSB South Bend departments are billed using IU accounts. So I don't know, maybe there's a way. Check out the contact information, give it a shot. Any other questions about the actual printing once you finally get your poster all set up? Mm-hmm.
The cost difference between going here or going elsewhere, do you know which would be for broke?
Well, I mean,
a couple bucks.
The black and white one for $24 is a completely feasible choice. I don't know how much it would be elsewhere. What I do know, though, is that these posters need to be up in that hallway for the hour and 15 minutes that you're going to be presenting with them. Because of that, you do not need a very high quality paper. So the lamination there, don't even consider that. Matte versus glossy. I prefer matte because that's easier to read from a variety of angles. Glossy tends to pick up too much reflection, so if you're off to the side, you might not be able to see it. But in reality, I mean, it's not going to be massively crowded out there, so either one will work. So I would say, look around, shop around. Does anybody have any experience with the FedEx printers or Kinko's or anything like that? All right, well, we got 3 weeks, so call around, get their prices, and yeah, definitely feel free to use whatever option you kind of feel you would want to use. Any other questions? All right. Okay, so poster presentation guidelines. I'm going to remind you about the alpha guidelines and the beta guidelines because they are the exact same guidelines that we've talked about before. So when you're presenting your poster, remember that you are still telling a story. It's a little bit more formalized. It's a little bit more, all there on the page. But you're still telling a story, and you're still telling it to human beings. People will come to your poster, and they are human beings. They do not have robotic data processing abilities. So you still want to structure your poster and structure your talking about your poster in a way that human beings can understand. So let's start that off with what does your poster look like? So as I mentioned, I uploaded templates for you to use. You got a choice of 6. So use the template. It's already set up 48 by 36. It's already kind of laid out. You can move different sections of it around. So that's what it's called, is a PowerPoint template. And there's a few different ones. The first one I'm going to show you is a traditional style poster template. So this traditional style, this is what you typically see at a conference, and it'll look something like this. So You got your title up here, as big as it will fit. So if your title is long, it can go from one side to the other side, as big as you can make that font. If your title is shorter, it might not reach from one side to the other side. Once again, as big as it can be. So your title is basically how they identify the poster. Make sure that it can be seen from far away. You want it as big as it will fit. Your full name goes there. Indiana University South Bend goes underneath. So once again, we have our name and affiliation. And then this is sort of a generic poster for any type of presentation. But section number 1 here, you would name it whatever it was. So if it's the introduction, which it typically will be, change section 1 to introduction. You want your text here, your subheading here, and you want to make the text, once you're done, as big as possible. So we're going to talk about how much text to have. Basically, the less text you have, the easier it is to digest your poster. But however much text you have, increase it so that it fills the space. Make it as big as possible. Nobody should have to like take out their glasses or get their opera binoculars out or anything in order to read your poster. So again, section 2, methods, section 3, results. I like to do the section 3 continued if you have to go another column over. And then we got section 4 here. And then in the acknowledgments, this is always a nice little thing to have. You can thank the participants, any professors by name, any external sources of funding, anybody that you would like to thank in your acknowledgments. And one nice thing about the acknowledgments here is that acknowledgments don't have to be a certain font size. So they're a great way to kind of fill in that last little bit of space. Because there's nothing more frustrating than when you have your discussion here, and at 20-point font, it looks like this, and at 24-point font, it's down here. What you can do is you can put it at 20-point font, and you just kind of slide your acknowledgments up there, make it visually pleasing. That's one way to do it. So that's one template right there. This is the other template. It is almost exactly the same. It just doesn't have those dividers. I prefer it without the dividers. I think it's kind of a bit of a cleaner look, but you can choose, if you're doing the traditional style, from either this or this. There we go. And then move it around as needed. So that's the traditional style. There is a new kind of style that's been making the rounds. This is the cutting edge style. I really like this new style. It's based on design principles about how people actually digest information. It kind of takes us out of the area of saying, you're a researcher, you must have robotic-like abilities, into the realm of saying, you're a human being, let me try to communicate in a way that human beings can understand. So this is one of the ones that I kind of wish I had a conference coming up so I could do this myself. Some of you are going to beat me to it. But this is the other design here. So once again, it's a full poster. You have your title as big as it will fit. You got your name. You got Indiana University South Bend. You have all your sections. You got your acknowledgments there. The big difference, though, is that up here, nice, big, and bold, you got your take-home point as big as will fit. So this is your one thing that you want them to remember. So if you remember, I mentioned this in the presentation. You should only have 1 or 2 big points. In your poster, you can also have that one big point, and you put your take-home point there as big as it will fit. And then I've made a QR code. The QRC code is a QR code. It takes you to another QR code, and then you can get So this is actually going to be linked to your research paper. So if you got your phones on you right now, you can scan that QR code with just your camera. So QR codes died a slow death about 10 years ago when they were first introduced because you needed to download an app in order to access the QR code that could link you to another, link you to wherever. Now, in just about every single phone, even in my bottom of the line phone that I have, cameras are built in with QR code scanners. So you can take a photo of that with your camera and it will pop up a little button to press to go to a link. That link takes us to an IU folder, IU box folder that I am going to fill with your with your research papers. So the nice thing about this, one of the things I really love is that they can get the gist of your poster. They can go through the entire thing. And then if they want more details, if they think to themselves, wow, this is great, I want to base all my research on it, they can actually get your full paper as well. So just kind of show you how this works and why I think it's such a good idea. This is where it actually, this is the person that designed this and kind of promoted this. I've tweaked their design to what I think is a little bit better, but this is basically what we're going to be trying to do.
Let's look at a before and after. So in the next grade, a few real academic posters are going to move past you at a walking pace. See how much information you can absorb.
All right, so this is a little demo to kind of show you what a traditional poster looks like when you're at a conference and just how much of this you can process. So take a look at these posters and try to figure out what are these posters about. Try to figure out, do I want to go and see what this poster is about?
Now try these same posters you just saw translated to the new design. Now this is going to be a little unbelievable and jarring at first, because when people see this, they don't believe that these clear findings came from the posters they just saw, but they did. This is how detached current scientific poster design is from actually communicating what you need to know. Here we go. You absorbed more, right? You got the gist of probably every post.
All right, so that is one of the reasons why next time I go, I'm going to be doing this poster at a conference. Because as you walk by, as you act like a human acts, this one communicates more information. And remember, that's been a theme for our presentations. If I was a robot, either poster presentation would be fine. If I was data just scanning hundreds of posters every second, I couldn't care which one it was. But as a human being, I really love this design. You got your big take-home point right there. You then have the full poster. So we're not skimping on information at all. We're still presenting the entire full poster. You still have that opportunity to say, oh, this is what we did in the introduction. As you can see here, here's my methodology. We use this different stimuli here. Here's the results. You still have that whole thing. And then plus, you have that QR code that will take them to a more detailed analysis of your project, which is your research paper, which will be done, and I'll just upload it to that IU box. So this is template number 1 with the dividers, template number 1 without the dividers, and then this is template number 2. I'm not sure which one I like better, the white text or the black text, but again, with the QR codes, and I've uploaded these templates, and I've uploaded the QR code as well into Canvas. So again, this is kind of like the new design, kind of pushing boundaries, but that's what science is all about. So for your own poster session, for your own poster, you can choose either template. You will not be graded any differently depending on which template you use, but they are there for you to use. They're there for you to download. Use those templates and make it as visually pleasing as possible. All right, any questions on this so far? All right, so what does your poster actually look like? One thing you want to do in your posters, use figures and pictures. Just because you have text up there does not mean that people are going to want to, read the whole thing. That's why you stand next to your poster to help them out. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden they've gotten the ability to read very quickly and ignore pictures. So you want to use figures and pictures. You want to use as little text as possible. So this is one of those 8-foot APS posters I was telling you about. And this one is actually a little text heavy for me, right? So I couldn't get around it on this one. But you can see there's not a ton of text. It's mostly picture. Graphs are all mostly picture. There's another picture there. Put pictures on there, because one of the things that you'll be doing at the poster session is actually talking to people about your poster. And you can point to your pictures, engage them with the pictures, and be like, well, we looked at pictures of different types of motion. So, for example, here's a picture where nobody's in motion. Here's a picture of somebody running. This is a picture of somebody jumping. Look, they used the metaphor of multiple images. This individual is falling. Here's a picture of somebody flying. Notice, not very convincing. Why isn't it convincing? What's wrong with this picture? Here's a picture of an individual swinging. So you will be there to kind of be like, hey, look at this, look at this. Look at all devices here. Look at only action lines here. So have those pictures, have those images to point to on your poster. Question?
So what if you didn't use pictures for your study? Do you just incorporate pictures that have something to do with your study offline? Can you just take pictures from the internet?
You can take pictures from the internet. So one important thing is that for your presentations and your posters, because they're not publications, you don't need, there's less restrictive copyright laws in terms of publishing it. So you're not selling your poster, you're not selling your presentation. That's really the big difference. Journals oftentimes charge a subscription rate. So they're making money off of the articles that are published, which is why that gets restricted. I would say never have a picture in your poster that doesn't serve a function. So if you're using the picture to illustrate a point, then you can definitely have it in as a figure. If you're not illustrating a point, don't just put one in to sort of decorate it, right? There should be, much like in your research paper, when you say things like see figure 1, you'll notice that in my poster as well, there's always see figure 1, see figure 2. You need to have images there for a reason. So if it's nothing except graphs on your poster, that's fine as well, right? If you don't need it to explain it, then that's fine. But if you can put in those images, if you do have stimuli that are visual, include them in your poster. It's a lot better to have it like a picture book. But again, you can have, your graphs, but have them up there and be like, oh yeah, this is what we found for flying. Notice what we found for swinging. Ooh, it's different than what we found for flying. All right, use as little text as possible. Make your figures large and necessary. This ties into that. And then make your text as big as possible. So one thing that really it's a bit of a pet peeve for posters is when I see something that looks like this. So perceptions and influence of locus and control attributions in helping behavior, right? You might think to yourself, well, this is helping behavior. Look, this person is helping this person. It adds nothing to the poster. It's basically just filler. And what it tells me when I see something like that is that this individual said, all right, I finished my poster, and oh no, I have a whole ton of white space, right? I got a whole ton of empty space. And instead of being audience friendly and taking my time and increasing the font size of this so that it'll spread across the entire poster, I'm just gonna stick a picture up there. That's good enough. They can squint. I don't care. That's what this says to me. So if you end up, with this, if you lay out your poster and you end up with this, and it looks like, this is the layout, and you have this huge section over here, guess what? It's time to highlight your text, increase it to the next font size. You are going to have to maybe move this section over to the top, move this section over to the top there. You might try 2 or 3 different font sizes before you get the correct one. It's all part of making that story understandable and respecting your audience. So this is what that person should have done, where they're like, all right, I'm not going to change what the words are, but I'm going to make them bigger so that my poster is now more visually pleasing. It fits better, and it's as big as possible. All right, use figures and pictures. Make sure your figures and pictures are high resolution. So in this day and age, with Google and the search functions that it has and the organizing by size, search by size, this shouldn't be an issue. But just make sure that your pictures are at a high resolution. And when you're doing it in PowerPoint, one thing that you can do in PowerPoint is you can zoom in to 100% of the slide size. That'll basically give you that life-size image of your slide. Take a look at your images and just make sure that they're high enough resolution that they don't look pixelated. because when I'm presenting, my research, or when I'm looking at somebody else's research, and you see something like this, and it's at a good level of pixelation. Even this is a little bit more pixelated, but this was a copy of a copy. Anyways, you want it as high res as possible. If it looks like this, your audience is human. They'll check out. They'll sit there going, "Oh no," they'll see it from afar, and they'll be like, "Oh, that looks interesting," and then they'll come up and they'll be like, "Oh no, I don't want to bother with that," because again, what this tells your audience member, what this tells the person that you're engaging with, is that you couldn't be bothered to spend another 5 minutes on Google for their understanding, right? You couldn't take that extra time. And that, again, it communicates. It's the same thing with the way you dress. It's the same thing with the way you present yourself. Make sure your pictures are high enough resolution. All right, going on. What goes into your poster? So now we've talked about how to print it. We've talked about how it should look, the format, the templates. What information are you actually going to put in there? So from this, I'm going to work straight off the poster grading sheets that we're going to be using, both myself and the department. So the presenter, so you will be graded on you yourself standing in front of your poster. So did you have a professional appearance and demeanor? Were you articulate in explaining the research? Did you answer questions well? So answered questions well, we've gone over that. Professional appearance and demeanor, same thing as for your presentation, for your oral presentation. So for men, no jeans, no running shoes, shirts with a collar, not a full-on suit, not too much skin. For women, no jeans, no running shoes, not too much skin. That is still in effect for your poster. And then in terms of articulating research, again, you'll have your ability to answer questions ready to go, those strategies ready to go. So you should have no issues in explaining what it was that you did for your project. Poster appearance. Text was easy to read. Don't make it too small, right? If you find that your text is too small, you have too much text. Take some out. Your poster is not your research paper. It's kind of somewhere between your presentation and your research paper. So you should be able to just give the gist for every single section. And remember that, number one, you will be there to explain to them. So if they say something like, "Oh, I'm not familiar with this particular theory," you'll be sitting there to say, "Oh, that's the theory about, apprehensions and inferences, and this is what they said." You don't have to dedicate this much of your poster to an outline of a particular theory. So I find that if students make an error in terms of the amount of text, it's going to be too much text. So always feel free to cut a little bit back. It's almost like, I think it was Coco Chanel and her advice on accessories. It's like you get yourself dressed, you look in the mirror, and you remove 2 accessories. I think that's kind of like also with posters. Get your text ready, put it in there, and then think about what you can take out rather than what you need to put in there. So was the text easy to read? Graphs and tables clearly labeled. So figure number 1, make sure the axes are labeled correctly. Make sure that when you put them on the poster, usually when you put a figure into a poster, you're taking an image and inserting it into your PowerPoint presentation. Make sure that when you resize that image, the words on the image are easy to read. Sometimes when people resize it, the words are still too small. That means you got to go back to wherever you made your graph and increase the font on those. So make sure that your graphs and tables are clearly labeled. Sections well organized. Follow the template. You won't have an issue there. Overall neatness. Once again, follow the template. You won't have an issue there either. Content. What's going to go in there? Well, you're going to have an informative title. So it doesn't have to be the title of your research paper. It doesn't have to be the title that you used at your URC presentation. Nice informative title, something that identifies the phenomenon and maybe the independent variables. And in terms of the rest of the poster, you're going to have an introduction, going to have a synopsis of your methods, synopsis of your results, and a synopsis of your discussion. So each of those sections in turn, for your introduction, you're going to mention the phenomenon. So much like your URC presentation, in your introduction, start with a statement about your phenomenon. If I'm doing literal and metaphorical pictures, I will start with a metaphor is this, Metaphors can also occur in pictures. See figure 1. Literal device is this, metaphorical device is this. So start with the phenomenon of what it is that you are investigating, and then you will have the theories. You will have things like theory A, says this about this particular behavior. Theory B says this about this particular behavior, and then it all ends with a hypothesis. Hypothesis number 1. If theory A is correct, we predict, subjects will do this. Hypothesis number 2, if theory B is correct, we predict subjects will do that. And it can be as short as that. It can be like 1 or 2 sentences for the theories, 2 sentences for the phenomenon, 1 sentence each for your hypotheses. That is going to be a good enough for poster introduction. But definitely hit those 3 areas. Method section. You're going to want a general overview. And this is going to include subjects. So unlike your URC presentation, where you are, you should mention your subjects. People like to know how many subjects did you use. For your poster presentation, absolutely have the subjects on there. And I should have updated this for corpus analyses. For corpus analyses, have the number of stimuli that you used. So for subjects, we ran 30 subjects, 20 males, 10 females. For corpus analysis, we analyzed 40 articles. We took a look at 500 images. We got data from the World Health Organization on 40 different countries. Give them an indication of how much did you analyze. And then for the methods, it's a general overview. So it's basically what did you do? Subjects were asked to do this survey and this survey. Half of the subjects watched this video, half of the subjects watched this video. Something as simple as that. We took these 40 articles and we analyzed them using this program for how many nouns, how many adjectives, future tense and past tense. Something as simple as that. This is not a method section to replicate what you did. This is a method section to understand what you did. So you don't need all those little details about randomization, about 12-minute video, Qualtrics, anything like that. So general overview, but do include the subjects. For the results section, you're going to report your key result. So in this case, you don't have to go through the full results section. You can if you have the space. It's not out of place on a poster presentation. But let's say that your main effects were not significant, but your interaction was. You just need to kind of report your interaction for a poster session. So you don't need to hit every single thing because, again, you're telling that story. It's going to be a little bit more detailed, but you don't have to hit every small little piece. And the other thing here that I don't have, you will include your stats. So you will have the actual stats, much like in the research paper when you write your your results section. Those same numbers, the p-values, the f-statistic, the degrees of freedom, do report those in your poster. They don't take up a lot of space, but people want to see that kind of evidence of the claims that you're making in a poster session. So report those as well for your results. But again, you don't have to go through every single result. You don't have to say there was no main effect for this, there was evidence of the main effect for this, there was no this by this interaction, there was no this by this interaction, but the 3-way interaction was significant. Just talk about the 3-way interaction in that case. All right, and then finally the discussion section. You want to give them the conclusion, 1 or 2 sentences about, hypothesis 1 was supported. We actually did find this. Hypothesis 2 was not supported. This did not occur. And then put some implications. This can be applied to, the current political climate. This could be applied to interventions for people with social media. This predicts that in the future, as cell phone use becomes more predominant, we're going to see these changes. Just something to kind of give it that importance, tie it into the real world. All right, so you will have all 4 of those sections in your poster session, and those are the main points that you want to hit for each of those particular sections. Any questions on that so far? All right, what's next? Overall, so this applies to the entire, all 3 sections. You will be graded on grammar and style, so give yourself a proofread. Make sure that your style isn't, for example, too familiar. Basically, at that nice APA level of scientific writing style. APA style for your citations. APA style for figures. So you do want to have citations in your poster. That's a good thing to bring up at this point. You do want to have citations in your poster. You don't have to have a reference section. If you need to fill in a little space at the end, pop in a reference section at a very small font. If you need to do that, feel free. But definitely APA style in terms of bold, italics, citations. Those are the big ones. So have that included as well. Numbers is another one. So look up APA style for how to report numbers. Mm-hmm.
So where would we put citations for like pictures that we got on the internet? Or do we not need to?
That you can actually put into your figure caption is oftentimes where those citations go. So you can cite it there. You don't have to reference anything in your poster. And again, sometimes I will end up with a little chunk of white space on my poster, and I'll have nothing else to fill it with, and I'll put references in there. And I will make the font really small to get all the references in. They're references. If people really want them, they can look closely at them. You don't need references. I would cite where you got your materials from, and for pictures that can go straight into the figure caption. Mm-hmm.
Each section of the fonts need to match.
I would match the font style, but you can make the font size a little bit different. So feel free to do that. I wouldn't change it too much, but I have seen the one that usually gets reduced is the method section. Because sometimes it's just going to be, even when you're just given the sort of general overview of the method section, sometimes it's still kind of long, especially on posters where it's like, oh, we had 4 different conditions. Those tend to be, rather long. So you can squeeze down the method section, but try to keep it within 2 clicks of that PowerPoint up and down font button for your overall poster. Other than your acknowledgments in the reference section, if you want to put it at the end, that you can bring down rather small. All right, any other questions? Okay, so navigating a poster presentation. So how is this actually going to work? How does it actually shake down when you're at a poster session, when you're sitting in front of that poster of yours presenting it? So the first thing to remember is that the poster sessions, they're very friendly, they're very low threat environments, right? It's very non-confrontational. So it's like a friendly conference presentation, even more relaxed, because instead of talking to 20 individuals during your presentation, you're talking to like one individual, 1 or 2 people who have accumulated by your poster that want you to explain it to them. So it's usually just like a very low threat, low anxiety type of environment. And you can just see here, it's kind of almost like usually like a one-on-one type situation where you just kind of stand there and talk to your poster. Sometimes you get more, sometimes you get, a nice little group going. But you can see here, it's a fun time at the poster session. So what do we do? It's going to be filled. Oh, so the poster sessions, this is going to be more geared towards your future academic presentations. Poster sessions tend to be the most wide-ranging in terms of where the research is at when the poster is presented. So poster presentations are oftentimes filled with preliminary research. Things like, we've run 10 subjects. This is what we found so far. We're not done yet, but this is what we got so far. Sometimes it's half-finished research. Sometimes it's things like, well, we have, 5 experiments planned in this, series of studies. We only got 2 done so far. This is what we found. Sometimes it's wild and crazy ideas. I have seen more posters on the effects of drugs on perception than I have anywhere else in any other presentation format. So the amount of posters that I've seen about people going to any culture and testing any drug and seeing what it does to your perception, those are those wild and crazy ideas. They tend to be in your poster session. And then you get the regular research, you get the standard, this is my experiment, it's completely done, here's what we do. So for you, we're going to be here. Some of you are wild and crazy ideas as well, but I like that. But we're going to be there in the bottom parts. So what do you do when somebody approaches your poster? So typically you're going to stand there and you're going to, just kind of, I don't know, don't stare at people, but just look around. And somebody will approach your poster, right? So somebody eventually are going to be walking through the conference, and at some point they're going to take a look at your poster, and they'll either come up to you and say, hey, can you tell me about your poster? That's what I usually do. Or they're going to walk up and they're going to start to read your poster. So they're either going to walk up and say, hey, can you tell me about your poster? Or they're going to walk up there and they're going to be like, what's the presentation? A person approaches your poster. So those are the two kind of responses you get at a poster session. So if they ask you to tell them about your poster, then it's simple. Tell them about your poster, but do not start with the methods. Never start with the methods. And there's a high tendency to do this in a poster session because one of the kind of regular questions that people ask is they'll walk up here to your poster and they'll say, oh, can you tell me what you did? And there is some switch in our brains where as soon as they say, oh, can you tell me what you did? You think, oh, they mean the methods section. Let me start there. And I don't know how many posters I've gone to where I don't even do that question anymore. I go, tell me about your research. But if you walk up and they say, oh, can you tell me what you did? You don't want to say, oh, well, we had 30 subjects here and we gave them a survey and we, regardless of what they ask, start at the intro. Oh, well, this is what we were interested in. This is the phenomenon. What's the effect of cell phone use on cognitive abilities? Are we getting worse? Are we getting better? That's what we wanted to find out. So do not start with the methods. Make sure that you don't do that. If they start to read your poster, what you want to do is look for signs of interest. So you never want to reel people in to your poster. You never want to take people hostage for your poster, right? So you want to look for signs of interest. So some people will walk up and they'll take a look at your poster and they'll be like, nope, not what I wanted, and they'll walk on. You don't want to engage with that individual because what you want to engage with, the highest value that you're going to get out of a poster session is when you talk to people that are interested in your research, either because they're in the same area or because they have that interest, in your research. If they're in the same area, that's the golden encounter, because not only are you going to be able to talk to people in that area, but they're going to be able to impart information to you as well. They're going to be able to say things like, wow, this is interesting, but have you thought about looking at this? So those are the ones that you want to get there. So they will show signs of interest. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have somebody where as soon as they look at your poster, you're like, oh, can I tell you about my poster? And they're like, they'll either run away or they'll be polite. They'll be like, well, okay, I can waste 10 minutes of your time. You can waste 10 minutes of my time. Let's do this. All right. So look for signs of interest. Give them a chance to kind of step up and be like, okay. If you see them reading, that's when you know that they have those signs of interest. So look for signs of interest. And then once you establish that, once you've given them a little bit of time to kind of read the title, read a little bit of the intro, then you walk up to them and you say, oh, would you like me to take you through my poster? Oh, would you like me to tell you about what I did? Oh, would you like me to tell you about my research? And 99 times out of 100, they'll be like, oh, yeah, absolutely. That would be wonderful. And then you do not start with the methods. Don't jump right into the methods. If you say, hey, can I tell them what you did? What I did for my research? And they're like, yeah, I would love for you to tell me what you did. Do not jump to methods. Start again with the phenomenon. All right, so again, you want to give them a chance to show interest. You don't want to just grab them off the walkways. And sometimes, I've been at poster sessions where I just kind of sat there and, it's been dry. There hasn't been a lot of interest. People have been walking back and forth. Maybe sometimes you're in an area of the conference where you don't get a lot of foot traffic and there's not that many people there. Usually in that case, I'll just turn to the person beside me who's also waiting and say, tell me about your research while we're here. But regardless, give people a chance to show interest. Nothing is worse than being kind of like grabbed like a carnival barker, and being like, ladies and gentlemen, you have to see this. Step right this way for my wonderful. No, give them a chance to show interest and then engage them. Would you like me to tell you about my research, or would you like me to take you through? And then you start engaging. All right. So we're going to finish today with a couple of things. Number one, just the difference between a professional poster session and this advanced lab poster session. So this is for your immediate future. This is for your future. So in a professional poster session, people are going to come by, and these are people that are interested in your research. These are people that have read through the program, and they've highlighted your name and highlighted your poster and tracked down your number. Or these are people that have walked through the area, saw your redesigned, grabbed attention poster and said, oh, I would love to know about that. Can you tell me about your research? For your advanced lab poster session, it will be people that are interested in your research as well. So you will have people coming by who are just, they're like, oh, this is a particularly interesting area, or this is what I'm thinking about doing for research as well. So there's no difference there. In a professional poster session, people are not going to be evaluating you. So they will not be sitting there thinking to themselves, oh, I'm grading this person on their poster presentation today. You're going to be one of 20 posters they're going to visit. They're not evaluating you. But in the advanced lab poster session, people will be evaluating you. But only one person will be evaluating you. So there's only going to be one person in that poster session that's going to be evaluating you, and that's going to be me. So only one person is grading you in the poster session. That's me. So bear that in mind. If Dr. Rodriguez comes up to your poster session, if Dr. Ritchie comes up to your poster session, you are under no pressure from them. You don't have to worry about them. I'm the only one that's going to be grading your poster session. So feel free to relax, take it easy. You know your stuff, and show your stuff. So no one is going to be evaluating you, but they will be evaluating somebody. All right, and the person they're evaluating is, well, two things. Number one, they're evaluating the psychology program. So we do use the poster session to see if we as teachers are succeeding. Right. So the one thing we're going to be evaluating is the psychology program as a whole. And then the other thing they're going to be evaluating is me. They're going to be taking a look at me and saying, did Dr. Udicevich get his students ready? Did Dr. Udicevich give them a good template? Did Dr. Udicevich teach them how to answer questions? So I should be more worried than you are at a poster session for the advanced lab. And I'll tell you, I'm not going to be worried because so far what I've seen is going to be super, super cool. But remember this, no one's evaluating you. All right, if you bomb in front of Dr. Ritchie, it's not going to happen. But if you do, just know your grade is not going to be impacted by that. And one of the nice things about a poster session as well is that in that hour and 15 minutes, you can talk to like 10 different people. So there have been poster sessions where I have gone through my entire poster session and then walked back to the front, and there's another person, and they're like, can you take me through your poster? And I'm like, absolutely. Gone through the entire poster session, come back to the front. I've had poster sessions where I've been going through the poster session, and then my co-author picked up another attendee, and then they're like following me. It's like a chain of like poster sessions going around. What that means is that you're going to have like 5, 6, maybe 10 go-arounds on your poster session. That's kind of nice because if you mess one up, right, it's 1 of 10. It's not a big deal. So again, not a high-pressure situation. In a professional poster session, they will only ask you questions they're interested in. So any question that you get is going to be something where they're like, hey, I'd really like to know that about your poster. In the advanced lab poster session, they will also ask you questions for testing purposes. So they will, again, try to evaluate the psychology program, try to evaluate me as well. One of the kind of classic questions is going to be about your stats. Why did you run your particular test? So have that information ready to go. Have it in the back of your mind. That's one of the things that they like to know. Basically, they're asking you, do you remember P471? That's the question that they're asking you. So you will get some of those weird questions. I have never been in a professional poster conference where somebody asked me, why did you run those statistics? Not once, but it is a common question that we get asked here at the advanced lab poster session. So bear that in mind. You might be asked that as well. All right, and then I think that is about it for the poster session thing. But I do want to mention one last thing because it's going to help everybody at the URC presentation. But we do have a question.
Yeah, how do you like end it? How does it, you like go through?
You end it, that's a good question. You end it the same way that you end your conference presentations. So you talk. Sometimes they'll ask questions as they go along, but you get to the end of it and you're like, are there any, do you have any questions? And they will either say things like, yes, I do, can I ask you about this? And you're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is the Flash over here, but this is the comic book. We wanted to test cartoons versus live action. You can talk, tell them about that. Usually once they're satisfied, they'll be like, oh, thank you very much. And you'll be like, thanks for coming by. Or sometimes you'll get to the end and you'll be like, do you have any questions? And they'll be like, no, that's, I'm good. And they'll head off. So usually it's your audience member that kind of decides, I'm satisfied, and it's time to go. But that's usually what you want to do. You get to the end and then you're like, do you have any questions? And that's the way to get to the end of it. This is a nice example of using references to fill in that white space. I could not get this poster sized correctly. I either ended up with text down to here or text up here. So I popped in my references. They're kind of small. It's a nice little space filler, that you can use as well. Any other questions on the poster session? Yep.
So I was wondering, I saw Dr. Richard the other day, and she mentioned to me something about us presenting our posters for like something for.
Yes.
Dr.
Okay. So I'm gonna we'll be sending out an announcement about that once the details get kind of finalized. But for those of you that might know, Dr. Hubbard is retiring very soon, so we are going to have a not a retirement party, but a sort of honorary conference for Dr. Hubbard. It's going to be at Lang Lab. It's going to be on the Friday after your poster session. So I believe that's on the 26th. It goes from 4 to 6, I think.
5 to 7.
5 to 7. It goes. Okay, so it goes from 5 to 7. And what we're going to do is we're literally going to have like a mini conference at the Lang Lab. And everybody's invited to come. It's completely optional. Your posters will be up there. And it's not a conference poster presentation. It's more of a, here's my great poster. Now I'm going to schmooze and enjoy, the festivities. So you're not expected to sit there or stand there and man your poster during that time. But he was very dedicated to student research and student success. So we thought, what a nice way to kind of honor his contribution by collecting a whole bunch of student research and kind of showcasing it at, at his retirement honorary conference. So that's going to be happening. That's on the final Friday. That's on the 26th. And we'll get you some solid details, as we kind of get closer to that. Any other questions? All right, so one last thing that I wanted to mention while we have the time here is one thing that really helps in a poster presentation is identifying for your audience and showing enthusiasm for your audience for the results that you got. So there is, again, it shouldn't be that way. Your audience should be able to sit there and understand that, oh my gosh, this is a great result, but it does work that way. So think about all of those product launch videos that you've ever seen. Think about when the Xbox comes out with a new iteration. Think about when Microsoft Windows, announced a new operating platform. The person that comes out to give this presentation, they never walk out there and they're never like, well, the Xbox 360 is going to have graphics that are going to blow you away. You have never seen anything like this before, right? That's not going to get anybody excited. It doesn't matter what specs they give you. It's not going to get anybody excited. What they do is they walk out there and they're like, Xbox is gonna blow you away, wait, right? They get it going, and it rubs off. Nothing rubs off on people more than enthusiasm. If you're enthusiastic, they're gonna be enthusiastic about your results. For that, I highly recommend when you get to your results, hit them hard. Hit them a little bit harder than you feel comfortable with, right? Try to push yourself out of that zone, out of your comfort zone. Because if you stand there and you're like, well, when we added literal to literal, we got this. And then as you can see, literal plus metaphorical also increased the quality of the picture. If you do things like that, people are going to sit there going, well, I guess this is boring research. Why should I get excited? But if you just bring it up a notch and just be like, when we added literals to metaphorical, what happened? Oh my gosh, look at this. Huge increase, right? Excited. Huge increase in the quality of the depiction. But what about when we added metaphorical to a metaphorical? Oh no increase whatsoever. Like, do that, right? It'll feel silly. It's effective, right? Is that going to happen when we add it to literal to mixed? No, we go back right up here. And then this is also a good thing to do. Highlight the important results. So in these results, this is important and this one is important. So when you're bringing it through, you can say that importantly, really importantly, here, this was key, no significant difference, right? So communicate that, hit your results hard, because I have seen great presentations that have not communicated well because they were sitting there going, well, here are the results, and as you can see, there's non-significant differences for metaphorical. And I've seen other ones where they do that kind of enthusiastic. They bring you in, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm excited to be here. And they're like, importantly, look at when we added metaphorical. No change whatsoever, non-significant differences. Add literal to mixed, once again, this huge increase in your ratings of depiction. Importantly, once again, when we add metaphorical to mixed, no change. What's happening here? So bring that kind of sense of wonder. It will feel weird, all right? It feels weird when I'm doing it. When I have to yell out Xbox, I felt kind of, a little self-conscious. Just push it a little bit, right? You don't have to go full monster truck Sunday on this, but just push it a bit, show that excitement, and then for your results, communicate the important results, right? So communicate it when you're like, this significant difference, this is the key, this is the important one here. This result, totally counterintuitive. We did not expect this at all. Look, not significant. Communicate that to your audience. Yep.
Do other professors and departments hit hard on presenting like you do, or are you one of the people who actually goes through all this with us?
To my knowledge, I'm one of the few that does this.
Because I was talking to a friend in the English department who's presenting his research, and he said for English they literally just read part of their paper.
Oh yeah. No, you never want to do
But I was
that.
like, don't you have a PowerPoint? He's like, no, we just have to read part of kind of summarize part of our thing and just read it.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
It is. It is. I have been to presentations where you're sitting there and they're like, okay, and here we have our next presenter, and the presenter comes up and they're like, I'm going to read from my newly published article, introduction, we did this. And honestly, we're human, and I can tell that everybody in the audience is doing that calculation where they're saying, can I slip out? And if I do, will they notice that the audience has diminished, right? So you take a look around and you're like, all right, there's 20 people in here. I'm about to make it 19. Nobody's going to notice. And when you're like, oh my gosh, this is not well attended. There's only 4 of us here. All right, I'll just sit here and take it. So yeah, again, this is something that is wildly overlooked, I believe, in science, where it's just that assumption that we somehow as scientists have left our humanity behind, and we are able to just process information dispassionately. And we're not. We're still people. We still like pictures, right? We liked them when we were children. We like them now. We like visual aids. It helps us in understanding. And we like it when people get excited about the stuff that they're presenting. So again, hit your data hard. And just one last thing when we have the time, go into your presentations thinking that your research is like the best research out there, the best you've ever done, the best that can be done. Is that true? No, it's not. Not at all, right? There's always room for improvement. But the worst, one of the worst things you can do, I won't say the worst, one of the worst things you can do is undercut yourself, undercut your contribution by bringing up anything that is negative about your presentations. So when I presented this, not once did I ever mention, well, we only had this many subjects, right? Not once did I say, well, this was online, so we couldn't really be sure. Not once did I say, well, the results for falling weren't as clear. Well, here we got, went down instead of up. Don't undercut yourself, right? Present it as best as you can. Be excited about it as best as you can. Treat it like your child, right? Treat it like a child where if you're introducing your child, you'd be like, oh, this is my child, Isabella. She's doing great in swimming. She also loves art. She's just a joy to be around. You don't want to be like, well, this is my daughter, Isabella. She's not that good at geography. But you don't do that, right? Do the same thing with your results. Be enthusiastic, hit it hard. Don't undercut yourself. There's always things that you wish you could have done differently. There's always going to be things that you wish you could have done more of. And that's study 2, study 3, study 4. We're on study number 1. We're concentrating on that. It's going to be the best that you could have made it. So don't undercut it. If you don't think that your sources were the best sources for your data, do as is. If you sent out a call online and you only got 4 people contributing to that survey, present that as is, right? Don't make people wonder why they're listening to you by undercutting your own presentation. So think about those tech presentations. Think about those. Google, watch on YouTube some of these presentations that they have for these video games that come out, and you'll see what I mean. Not once do they walk out there and say things like, all right, we got Red Dead Redemption 2 coming out in September. None of the bugs are fixed. We got wall issues. We got collision detection problems. We're going to release like a beta version, and we're going to want you to fix it for us. But this is what we have. Never, right? It's always, this is going to revolutionize everything. This is the greatest game ever. Here we go. And people are on board, and they're there with you. Now, unlike that presentation, and I'm not picking on Red Dead Redemption 2, I heard it's amazing. But unlike that presentation, we're not lying, right? It's not lying. It's just not undercutting your own presentation, because all of your research, all of my research could be better. I can always run more subjects. I could always test another condition, but you got to present what you got to present, and you're presenting it to humans. So make them walk out of there going, man, I'm glad I came to this session. That was a great presentation. I'm going to remember that, change the way that I thought, and make sure that we're doing that for our presentations. All right, so that is all that I wanted to cover. Any final questions or anything? Okay, so I'm going to put together the final schedules for next week's presentations. So again, if you want to do a dry run, if you want to do a practice run, let me know. I will schedule in on either Tuesday or Thursday. I will also be putting up the schedules for people that need to present during that time. And I'm going to make attendance next week optional. So if you want to come by, kind of see what the presentations involve, feel free. If not, I won't be taking attendance. Just come, come by if you're presenting. It's up to you, but let's make sure that the next thing that we do, that URC presentation, practice it, use the guidelines that I mentioned, practice handling your questions, hit your results hard, and let's make sure that they remember psychology at the URC when it's done. Other than that, we are done for the day.